Warning: the following podcast contains violent scenes that may be unsettling to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Brian Book Club. Today we'll be talking about Alan Moore's and Eddie Campbell's 1989 comic series / graphic novel, From Hell. Before I dive into it, I kind of want to tell a little story about my early teenage years. So one afternoon, I remember it was a Sunday afternoon, I was about 13, 14. I had rare control of our TV in the living room. My parents were doing stuff around the house, and so I was flipping through the channels trying to find something to watch, and I came across this mini series. I believe it was created in England that dealt with Jack the Ripper, and I kind of followed the story of this investigator who was looking into these different suspects to try to find out who Jack the Ripper was. And the big reveal at the end of the series was that all these suspects worked together in the murders of Jack the Ripper. And that always kind of stuck in my head. Now, I never became what's known as a Ripperologist, I believe it's called, people who look into the different theories of who Jack the Ripper was, because I found myself being more interested in like 20th and 21st century murderers and books such as like Mindhunter, which I'll be covering in a future episode. But I've always kind of, liked the theory of Jack the Ripper, or how it's been handled some in fiction. But I've never really delved too deep into it. So I remember in the early 2000s watching the movie adaptation of From Hell, which has Johnny Depp playing a character in there. And to be honest with you, I wasn't like really too impressed with it. And that kind of actually prevented me for the longest time from reading From Hell. But then I started noticing a trend that like From Hell was often brought up when like the subject of good graphic novels was brought up. For those of you who don't know, Alan Moore is considered like has a good reputation in the comic book industry. He did the Watchmen series. He did a run on Swamp Thing and Hellblazer, and he's known for writing more adult-oriented, mature stories for people to read. But another interesting aspect of Alan Moore is that he's a follower of what is often referred to as magic with a K, meaning has K at the end, M-A-G-I-C-K. Now, I am not a follower of magic with a K, but I've done like some reading on this subject, and probably one of the most famous followers of magic with a K was a gentleman named Aleister Crowley, who lived in the 19th century. For those of you who know, there's an Ozzy Osbourne song, Mr. Crowley. He's been mentioned in a lot of media before. And he was a gentleman who inherited a small fortune from his father's death, and basically kind of started this magic with a K movement. For those of you who might want to read more about Aleister Crowley, I read a book that I have here called, and I'm going to butcher this, Per Durabo, written by Richard Kaczynski here, that tells a pretty interesting history of Aleister Crowley. Now, when I read autobiographies or history books, I try to read non-biased, where like a pro or con version of something. I just try to read like a middle-of-the-road version. This gentleman who wrote the book seems to be someone who believes in magic with a K, but I would say the first like third of the book is very strong and just coming across as an autobiography on the life of Aleister Crowley. So when I ended up reading From Hell, I was blown away because it was a lot more than like the movie was that I watched, and a lot more than what I expected. I mean, there are tons of like just awesome things in this graphic novel. The artwork of Eddie Campbell is just real gritty and just adds this element where at first you're not quite sure like if this art's really going to like elevate the story, but then it just majestically does. It just there's and just a warning, there's going to be some spoilers in here obviously, but like his artwork of the Queen of England and just the way the panels in which she just sits there stoic, it's just very impactful. Something simple. The sex scenes and the nudity in there is in a way very like crude but grounded in reality. It's not pornographic in nature. It almost makes you feel dirty, not in the sense that like you feel dirty for looking at something sexual, but you feel dirty because it's so real and it's so awkward. The artwork and the sex scenes in the book, and you have these grand conspiracies, and you have like magic with a K, and you have like brutality. And we're going to delve into this more when I cover and how this can be inspired. But this tomb of a graphic novel just has so much in there, and it's so wonderfully done. Oh, I could go on about it, and I will after we get to the inspirations. But what are some inspirations that you can pull from Alan Moore's From Hell and use in a World of Darkness, White Wolf, Onyx Path licensed game? One is grand conspiracies. I own a ton of conspiracy theory books, not because I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but they are awesome, awesome, awesome inspiration for running World of Darkness games. And one conspiracy that is in this book is that, and not to spoil too much, is that Jack the Ripper is doing the murders to cover something up for the English royalty. And it has like the Freemasons, and it basically is like the Freemasons feel like Jack the Ripper's going too far, and there's this inner conflict, and there's certain leadership in the Freemasons who are trying to make certain individuals know that he's going too far, and there's this cover up, and it's not confusing at all. It's not a knot of storytelling where you feel lost. It's articulated perfectly in the art and in the dialogue, because you have to think about this. It is done in comic panel fashion, and if you can get this grand conspiracy out there in comic book fashion, then I feel it's well written. And so a lot of World of Darkness games can take motivation from conspiracy theories, because it gives you these plots within plots within plots that you can utilize. I actually used a conspiracy theory book called The Ultimate Evil for our the Ultimate Evil Chronicles of Darkness game I ran. I kind of named it after that book in homage, in a way. Another thing that is used is magic with a K, which in White Wolf World of Darkness games, I'm not a fan of like magic as being like magic missile magic or lightning bolt magic, normal magic with a C, I guess. But magic with a K really creeps through the story here. And there are some elements, not to spoil, but there are some elements where like the fabric of reality is ripped, for at least for Jack the Ripper, and at times in this, you know that Jack the Ripper's slowly losing his mind while he's doing this, but you're wondering, is there really some magic to this, like he thinks? Are really these murders happening because he thinks he's going to enlighten his mind? Because there's this really powerful issue in From Hell. It's the fourth chapter, or the fourth issue of it, where Jack the Ripper takes this driver, carriage driver that he has, who's a probably lower IQ stock, and he's explaining to him the different structures and tourist attractions and monuments of London. And he's explaining it in a way where he's telling about the pagan history of it and what they represent and what they were built. And at the end of the issue, he takes the map of all the places that they went to and he draws it out, and it's a pentagram. And so like and you see like it has it's embedded into the story, and it's really well done, because I feel that magic with a K, I'm a fan of it in World of Darkness and White Wolf games, because you're not quite sure if it's magic, if it's supernatural, or if it's just someone being loony, or if it's someone just lying. And it kind of leaves that unknown element. And with the unknown, humans have a history of trying to fill that gap of the unknown by rationalizing it. And sometimes the rationalization can bring horror into the aspect of the story like that. Another thing is the grittiness. I mentioned that before. Real gritty. It shows the poverty that London had in that time. There's this real powerful scene where they show these prostitutes would go and rent rooms, or rent sleeping space in a room where they stood on a wall with other people who were poor, and then the owner of the room would just put a rope taunt across their chest so they could fall asleep standing up and not fall down. I mean, think about that. That is a slap in the face, because that is historic. I've heard that mentioned number of times, especially in the podcast Serial Killers, where they talked about Jack the Ripper, and they mentioned that specifically. And the book does a really good job of that. It really made me appreciate Joaquin from our group who ran our Victorian Age vampire game Diluted, because he did a really good job, and I'd compare it to how Alan Moore did here, setting the scene of London at that time. And that's really powerful. Would I recommend this book? Yes, I would recommend this book without a doubt. I think this is the first book in our first 4 episodes that I've recommended, or that I've gone over, that I recommend without a doubt should be read. 5 out of 5 stars, by far. Matter of fact, it's one of the best graphic novels that I've read. Probably the best graphic novel I've read, by far. Tons of inspiration that can be found there. Really well written, and there is a reason why this is considered one of the greatest graphic novels of all time. So definitely check it out. So before I sign off, one thing I'd like to announce is, for those of you who follow us on Twitter, at twin_cities_VTM, you may have seen a post where I reached out asking if there was other content creators who wanted to do guest spots for the Brian Book Club, because I felt that showing other content creators out there who deal with White Wolf, Onyx Pass, World of Darkness settings, and tell how they are inspired and what media inspires them in the horror genre would give more to you, the viewer/listener. And I was blown away with the reception it got, honestly. When I saw that White Wolf retweeted it, and if you happen to be listening, thank you for that. And seeing how people like Matthew Dawkins, the Gentleman Gamer, Josh Heath, just tons of people have reached out. It just blew my mind. And I was really nervous about making that post. And I'm happy that I did now. So our next episode that's going to be released is going to be done by Josh Heath from High Level Games and Werewolf the Podcast, where he's going to be talking about the Necromonicon short story collection. And he's going to give his take on that. So I'm really excited about that. So again, I mentioned our Twitter, twin_cities_VTM. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Facebook at Twin Cities by Night. If you enjoy this series and you watch the video version, the subscription on YouTube, a thumbs up and a comment would mean a lot. It helps promote this series. If you're a fan of the podcast, a review on iTunes or your preferred app, but especially iTunes, and a subscription would mean a lot too. That helps us promote us and kind of helps us elevate us and get us noticed by more people. Also, sharing with your friends and on social media would also be much appreciated. Other than that, next episode done by me will be covering perhaps my favorite book of all time, Stephen King's It. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time on the Brian Book Club.
Hello, folks. Have you ever wished you could have an easy way to find gameplay videos and podcasts, or just media in general that deals with your favorite White Wolf role-playing games? Or have you ever wished you could find a forum to share gameplay that you have recorded, one which wouldn't be drowned out by random posts and discussion, so that your media could get the attention you want? Well, we have the answer for you in a Facebook group we run called White Wolf RPGs Gameplay and Media. The group is specifically ran with the sole intent of it being a one-stop shop for people to view or share media involving the games we all love. We take thorough steps to ensure the page does not become cluttered and is easy to traverse. We are currently over 1,000 members strong, and we are continuing to rapidly grow, with new media being shared every day. Stop on by. We hope to see you there.